All right, can everybody hear me? Wow, is everybody awake? All right, wonderful. So when you come home after a long day of software engineering or DevOpsing or operations engineering or ninjaing or rockstarring or sysadmining, and you have those few moments available to relax and pick some entertainment, you're having a moment. And if you pick Netflix, we consider that we've won that moment of truth. You've chosen to spend your time with us. Maybe you're looking for something with superheroes. Maybe that new one with a lawyer. Superhero lawyer. Maybe something romantic. Or a comedy. Romantic comedy. Something epic and grand. Epically spooky. Political documentary. Prison documentary? Actual documentary. Maybe something with those retirees. Or powerful women. Powerful women retirees. In their natural habitat. But you've made your decision, and you press the play button, and you're greeted by this. Yeah, this is not the experience we're hoping for. This was not the plan. Now, I have contended for a long time that we should replace this with this. Netflix is having problems. At least we're giving you healthy life advice. But everybody's seen this, unfortunately, right? I should have asked earlier, who here has used Netflix? Okay, good. Otherwise, the rest of us looking like holes. So you might be thinking to yourself, is it just me? Maybe you checked social media? Maybe news media? You may ask yourself, what's going on at Netflix? So this next bit I call Life About Netflix, because it's at least 8 times better than what it used to be. Hopefully the humor gets better. Netflix is at its core a large data and telemetry company that has the byproduct of streaming video over the internet. Earlier this year, Reed Hastings, the CEO, announced all the hard work that the Netflix elves have been doing, and we launched in 130 countries all at once. How do we make this thing work? Your Netflix experience is made up primarily of 3 pieces. We have a rather large footprint in Amazon's web services. That's where all of the compute and storage happens, all of the business logic, all of the data storage, all of the recommendation engines, all the metadata. All of that happens at Amazon. We use a bit of Akamai for those UI bits, the buttons and the lines, and some JavaScript. All of the video bits come from Netflix Open Connect. This is our purpose-built video CDN. We started building this about 3 years ago. Before that, we served video from the big 3, Limelight, Level 3, and Akamai. So if you're watching a video, it came from one of those. But there became a burgeoning problem. Any of those CDNs had a business problem that Netflix does not have. Anytime they place one of those boxes somewhere, they have to tie profitability to it. They have to understand how that box is going to make the company money. Our desires and problems live at the other end of the spectrum. Netflix doesn't have advertisers to worry about. The only people we have to satisfy are our subscribers. So when we talk about satisfying those subscribers, one of the things we think about is engaging and fabulous and interesting content for large groups of people. But we also want that experience to be good. Especially as video standards move along, we start talking about things like 4K and HDR and 6K and 8K and whatever else they're going to come up with. It starts to require a lot more bandwidth and even shorter hops. We want to be as close to that customer as we can. So when we started building the CDN, the strategy was simple. Get as close to the customer as we can. So primarily, the Netflix CDN is installed inside of, hopefully, your ISP's network. We go to them with a stack of caching equipment and routing equipment. We say, here for $0, please put this inside your network so we can better serve your customers. You want to get those bits as close to you as possible, so that when you press the play button, it's fast. And when something is filmed in 4K and you have that new 4K TV, you get to enjoy that entire experience. In a few cases where we're unable to embed directly with the ISPs, we have a large installation internet exchanges, and we do service, settlement-free interconnect with as many people as will connect with us. So maybe we're not quite inside the network, but we're only a hop or two away. So those are the pieces that make it up. Now, on the Amazon side of things, you probably heard Netflix talking about microservices. We beat this drum a lot like we made up the word. But we are microservices architecture. We have one little service doing its one thing and doing it well, and they talk to other services. It kind of looks like this. I'll give those of you taking notes just a minute. We jokingly refer to this as our Death Star diagram. So there's a different view, maybe like a call path diagram. That looks like this. That's almost as clear. For a company that really has one service, streaming video over the internet, it takes a lot of moving parts to make that experience what we want it to be. And as you can see, it takes a lot of complex bits to make that work. We have hundreds of these microservices, thousands of daily production changes, anything from code pushes to feature flags to activation of new code paths, all of those kinds of things. Thousands of those a day. Tens of thousands of those virtual instances inside of Amazon's infrastructure. Hundreds of thousands of customer interactions every minute. We're actually getting to the point where I'm going to have to update my slide. We may be getting close to hundreds of thousands every second. Millions of customers, 80-some million, I think, at the last release of information. Billions of time series metrics. Except we're a large telemetry company that on the side sends out video to. Last I checked, we had 2.7 billion time series that we processed every minute to make Netflix run. Tens of billions of hours streamed. Hours viewed or hours streamed is a traditional measurement in the television world of how well you're doing. So every quarter we talk about that, how much entertainment we've sent out to our customers. We do this with tens of operations engineers and no knocks. We don't have anything that is a knock but has been cleverly renamed to not sound like a knock. So you may say, it's really great, Dave, but I have a question. How does Netflix think about DevOps? The honest truth is, we don't. You might say, Dave, this is a DevOps conference. The word DevOps is right in the name of the conference. So I've told you something that we don't think about. We'll go over some things we don't think about and some things that we do think about. We don't build systems and policies and training that tell our engineers no. There is no allowed push schedule or push window or push crucible that somebody has to go to get their code into production. Every engineer at Netflix has access to the production environment. It's been that way for years. Who would like to take a guess on how many times that has caused us problems? How many times has someone logged in and shut down Netflix and erased everything? You know, all those horrible things people always talk about when you mention this? It's happened to us precisely 0 times. We've never had a problem giving people access to a production. So what do? We do freedom and responsibility. This is one of the terms that we throw around a lot at Netflix. It's pretty important. The goal at Netflix when we hire people is to hire smart people and then to get out of their way. We can't hire smart people and try to think of every possible situation that they're going to be in and every problem they're going to try to solve and create the appropriate guideposts and guide rails and troughs and all of these other management talk kinds of things to make sure they don't make a mistake. We give them the freedom to solve the problems they're given in the way that they want to solve them. We also look for the kind of people that take responsibility and make work easy. It's a wonderful environment. A bunch of smart people out there solving problems and being responsible for their decisions and their actions gives you a company that does really interesting things very quickly. We don't value uptime at all costs. I find this to be rather puckering for a lot of people, especially operations engineers. That was, that's what I did for a long time. I spent a lot of time in the data center. I think right here, heard it. That was really our one, that was our one measurement of success, right? Everything else didn't matter if something went down. So we put multiple hard drives in servers and put them on RAID controllers, and we put multiple power supplies into the servers, and then we had multiple network cards running off of multiple cables to multiple switches to multiple routing paths, and then we had multiples of that, just so that we could chase that uptime. That's not true at Netflix. That's not what we focus on. We focus on that velocity of innovation. We want our designers and our software engineers and our developers thinking of interesting, fun, new, and exciting things, whether that's a feature for the service or a different way to engage, another way to find compelling content. We want them to be doing that. We want them to be getting those things ready out into the environment so that our customers can use them as quickly as possible. We will trade some uptime to maintain that velocity of innovation, because that's what delights our customers. That's what helps us win those moments of truth. Now, does this mean that nothing ever goes wrong? Yeah, nothing ever breaks at Netflix. The rest of my presentation is cat pictures I looked at this morning. Even recently, as of Saturday, there was a little bump in the night. So what we do to help compensate for that, because we're not willing to give up on the velocity of innovation, is that we have a team of people that are experts in handling emergencies in the system when they happen. They understand how the system works together, the important pieces, how it sits on top of Amazon, how those interfaces work. They understand how to find the issues quickly in the system, and how to get the right engineering teams involved that it's going to take to repair that problem. So that way we can value and keep the velocity of innovation going and still maintain high uptime. So I said winning those moments of truth is important, and if the service isn't up, it's really, really hard to win those moments of truth. It's a great way to convince someone that maybe today's Amazon Prime Day. I've really been curious about Hulu. That's not the goal. We don't do processes and procedures. Much like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to conceptualize every problem that somebody's going to come up against, especially when we're asking them to run quickly and try new things. So since I can't really think of all of those things, how could I possibly come up with all the appropriate procedures for people to follow with those things? So what we don't do, we don't operate like a bureaucracy. And if you think of typical bureaucracies, governments and militaries are good examples. They have certain goals that they need to achieve. And they need to be able to plug almost any cog into that machine and be able to achieve that goal. So the way you do that is that you make sure the cogs don't make a whole lot of decisions, and they're all shaped similarly as much as possible, because I need to be able to put anything in and get out what I need. That's not what we're looking for. When we hire people, we look for that one person that we can trust, that we can hand problems to, and let them take responsibility and move forward. And the nice thing, when you have that environment and you have that trust, you stop feeling the need for all of those guardrails and policies and crucibles, because you have smart people that want to do the best thing possible for your system. So you let them do that, and you don't spend your time on the things that you don't need. We don't do a lot of control. You can kind of see that this is a pattern. We allow people open access to the production environment. There is no operations or SRE crew that has to review all of their code before it goes out into production. We don't spend a lot of time telling engineers and engineering groups what to do. They're not provided with specifications and requirements. They're provided with problems. Ooh. There we go. See the problems. What we do focus on, we focus on context. At least half the job of being a manager at Netflix is making sure that you're gathering information from the company and from other teams and providing that information to your team so they understand what other people are doing, what decisions are being made, what goals there are in the organization, so that they can take that information and make good decisions. They can move forward quickly and still be aligned, but loosely coupled with the rest of the organization. So we don't have those strong controls. We don't have required standards. There is not that this is the language you will use, these are the libraries you will use, this is the way you will solve that problem. We don't do that. We focus on enablement. So a few examples of what I mean by enablement. For the longest time, if you were a member interacting with Netflix on a browser on your machine, you interacted with a system we called Java Web. It was our Java system that talked on the web. Really creative name. The team responsible for it discovered that they would really like to align more with the teams that were designing the UI and the device logic. So they felt the best move would be to move out of a Java environment and move into a Node environment, so that they're writing JavaScript on the edge that talks to JavaScript on the devices. It required exactly 0 management approval, 0 operations approval for them to make that decision. They had a problem to solve. We trust them to solve it the best way possible. I mentioned earlier we have tens of operations engineers. The operations engineering team at Netflix is about 80 people or so right now. The vast majority of those people are software developers making tools to make it easier for our other software developers to own their own problems. That's what they focus on. Deployment tools, metrics, storage, alerting tools. All of those kinds of things we want to provide and have made easy so that somebody who's focusing on writing billing code can focus on writing billing code. We want to enable them to solve those problems. We don't do these silos, walls, fences, and other management terms. I spent probably at least half of my first 6 months at Netflix just going around other teams, walking in, introducing myself. Hi, what do you do? Tell me how you fit in. And I learned a lot about the system. They didn't have to worry about what they were going to share with me or what they could tell me or who I was or where I came from or did I have approval to come in and ask these questions. The worst answer I ever got is, hey, we're in the middle of something right now, can you come back tomorrow? Most of the time, people stopped what they were doing. We walked over to a whiteboard because that's how engineers think, and we drew on the whiteboard. I asked questions. They answered. This is a key part of making ownership easy. We talked about enablement earlier. We want our software engineers to build their service and to run their service. There is not an operations group surrounded by that fence over which they throw code and hope that it ends up running like they want. Engineers at Netflix, if they build something, they run it. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to run it. I don't want them to have to develop a deployment tool and a monitoring tool and a metrics tool and, I need a database, I better go figure out databases and how best to run the database. So we have a lot of our engineers that focus on making those things easier. That's the enablement portion. Because we want them to confidently be able to build their software and to run their software and be available when that software isn't doing what it's intended to do. We don't do guesses, we don't do gut instinct, we don't stand on tradition. We're big believers in, sacred cows make the best hamburgers. We do focus a lot on data. Earlier when I mentioned we're a large telemetry company with the byproduct of streaming video, it's not just a funny thing to say. We have those billions of time series metrics that tell us everything about how the system is running. We have graphs and dashboard tools and all of those kinds of things. But we want to be a data-focused company, not just a company that happens to have data. So I had somebody who's a slightly better photographer than I am take this picture. This is a picture of the operations engineering group at Netflix. Now compared to maybe what you're used to seeing for other operations engineering groups, there's something missing. You'll notice we're not surrounded by television showing us graphs of performance. It was a choice we made. We want to be data-driven, which means we need to have that information and we have to leverage that information. For a long time, we did have all of the TVs up with graphs, and boy, if something went wrong and you happen to be looking at the right TV, you might see it. It's not how we want it operated. Engineers are entirely too valuable and entirely too expensive to pay to stare at graphs. So we want to make sure that we're building intelligent analytical systems that are actually capable of looking at 2.7 billion time series per minute and raising a flag if there's a problem, or being able to take automated action. So we forced ourselves to think that way, to get rid of the crutch of having those displays up there and to truly learn to rely on our systems by getting rid of the televisions. We have a lot of data we want to make sure we're using. So we don't do DevOps. What we do is focus on our culture. The result of the Netflix culture looks an awful lot like DevOps. And you might say, well, you wouldn't say this, of course. That sounds nice, David. It wouldn't work with it. Usually when I hear this, and I hear it a few times, I have a response like this. I don't think you have a DevOps problem. I think it's a culture problem. If you're hiring people you can't trust, and that's why you feel the need to build these guards, or you're not giving them the context they need to make good decisions, buying the tube of the DevOps cream to spread on your problems isn't going to fix anything. We've seen people take all their engineers, buy them new business cards, announce that they're DevOps and everything should be fine now, without a change to the culture. If you're curious to learn a little bit more about some of those values that I talk about, they're important to Netflix. You can find those at jobs.netflix.com. There's a presentation there called the Culture Deck that's been, it's actually one of the first things that Netflix really made available, or that we open sourced 10 or 12 years ago now. And it's often been called one of the most important documents to come out of Silicon Valley. And it's a PowerPoint, which makes me laugh. But it talks about what's important, and you'll hear things like freedom and responsibility and trust and context over control. So if you really want to get a peek inside how we think, go take a look at that. Well, I'm glad you asked. You can also find that information at jobs.netflix.com. I'm here today and tomorrow. Jonah, who you'll hear from this afternoon, is also here from Netflix. We have a table over in the corner. Unlike other conferences and shows, we don't have anything to sell you. Even the first month of the service is free to you like it is to literally billions of other people. We do have some stuff to give away because we like swag. And we like talking to people that do what we do and solve other interesting and fun problems. Happy to talk to you about more about the culture. We've open sourced about 70 different pieces of software that make Netflix run. So a few of the things that I mentioned, and I think a couple that Jonah's bringing up this afternoon, is software that you can go get. You can run it today. I'm Dave Hahn. I'm a senior SRE at Netflix, and this is my series. Do we have time for questions, or did I run too far?
So we've got about 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to step up to the mic. I'll actually kick it off. So you mentioned engineers at Netflix get access to production, or all engineers get access to production. How soon does that happen? Is that like on hire, or is there a vetting process before you?
As soon as they have authentication into the system, which is required for the first day, they can log onto the system. There's no vetting process, there's no waiting period, there's no you have to be this tall. Yes?
Yeah, Netflix, at least historically, somewhat famously, doesn't hire junior people. Every engineer that comes in is relatively senior. How much does that tie into the ability to trust people? As much as I'd love to trust junior people coming aboard, that can blow up in your face in interesting ways. It doesn't apply if everyone is senior.
It's an openly stated and important part of what we do. We don't have internship programs. We don't hire people right out of school. We want people to be able to hit the ground running. And in order to do that, it takes both some life experience and some work experience. So we look for fully grown engineers. So yeah, we don't introduce that into our environment because again, we want people that we can trust, and they're going to have a life experience to make some of those decisions that they're up against. Any other questions?
Yeah, what came first?
Which?
Culture or DevOps? Did DevOps drive the culture, or was it the culture of Netflix that is DevOps?
Yeah, it's the culture. Reed Hastings, who started the company in '97, had a previous company called Pure Software. Those of you who've been doing development for a long time may remember Pure. It was a while ago. And he and Patty McCord worked together. And they developed out of their experiences at Pure the kind of environment that they wanted to have. So they started Netflix with many of those tenets already in mind. They'd already learned those lessons. So it's definitely culture first. The result is what was like. We actually, if we bring people in to interview, we make sure they've gone through that deck first. Because there are frankly some things there that make some people uncomfortable. I've worked with some people that are very rigid in their desire for control and having things done a certain way and reproducibility, and that requires a different kind of environment than we run. Other questions? Yeah.
What you described sounds sort of like a utopian society. Sorry, with no processes or checks or QA.
We have QA, lots of QA.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I misunderstood with the implication of no processes or checks. The department I work in doesn't have QA for software per se, but we have a lot of peer code reviews and maybe coding standards so that we speak on the same language level, if you will. Is there something similar to that in Netflix in order to produce this utopian society?
It's a responsibility for each team. So there are teams that it's all a pair program, or it's all code review. And there are some of there's a group of people that work together long enough and they know what's doing how to speak to each other. But we hand that responsibility to the teams. There's nothing coming down from the operations engineering organization or Netflix as a whole that will say, it says, you will do this, other than be responsible for what you do.
Those two, is there any sort of automated testing framework you have put in there? And that's the developers creating that at the same time?
We actually have quite a few. We encourage people to use them. We do have, we use the same paved road concept a lot of other people use. Here's the set of tools and best practices and things that work well. So for instance, we have Spinnaker is our continuous deployment integration tool. We'll plug for them, wonderful multi-cloud deployment tool makes it really easy to do all those kinds of things. But one of the plugins available is what we call our automated canary analysis. So I can easily deploy engineering. The system will look at its behavior, at those metrics that come out of it, and its expectations, and it will halt the rest of the deployment if there's some kind of performance regression or metrics regression on things that don't look right. So again, we want to enable people to be successful, and things like the ability to have those tools is part of that enablement. Just like actually doing the deployment should be as simple as possible. When I need to throw new code out once I built the Spinnaker pipeline, I just commit to my appropriate branch, and the system takes care of the rest of the deployment. Whether that's testing or scaling or setting up new DNS records or new DLEs that I might need to turn off the old ones and new ones are up and running, I don't have to worry about that. It's simple and reproducible in that form of the code.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to stop questions there so we can get Ben coming up. If you have any more, like you said, Dave's going to be here today and tomorrow. Please feel free to go check out the Netflix table and ask Dave directly. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer any additional questions
we
you
like
guys have.
talking to people, so please come back.
And one quick note for everyone out there. If you do have a question, I'm asking that you please come to the mic. That way we can pick you up on the recording. We are recording all the sessions, so you'll be able to watch these later too. So, thank you.
Sweet. Good morning. I don't know that I saw the classic breakdown. It's a DevOps event, so we have to do it. So I'm going to ask, by show of hands, who here would say that they are predominantly from a developer proclivity? Oh, a whole bunch. And how many for an operations proclivity? Cool. And of course, we all do both. Also, managers. Who are managers, leads, things of that sort? VPs, if you dare to raise your hand. Cool. Always good to know. Sort of before I get started, I want to thank Julie for putting together this event and really being the heart and soul of it. There are a lot of people involved, but I think Julie really is